Welcome back to Horn Takes, your Texas football and baseball talk destination. I am Sean Redfern. It is Tuesday afternoon. That means we got to get on this Georgia Bulldog week, this SEC championship week. Check out the after action review on that Aggie game up on YouTube yesterday. I also put some videos of just some of the video content I did up on the YouTube channel as well. Make sure you check that stuff out. Today we're going to do the deep dive on those Georgia Bulldogs offense. Already seen it once. Despite the fact that they scored 30 points in that game, wasn't all that impressive in that game. Who knows what happens on Saturday? But I don't feel like the Texas defense got ran over at all in that game against Georgia. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, you can check that out at Apple Podcast, iHeart Podcast, Spotify Podcasts, all the podcast places. Also, horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com will have all the audio episodes. But again, I recommend just subscribing to the YouTube channel. Go ahead and hit the little notification bell so you get notified. We'll be doing live streams there. Also, check out Twitter because we'll do live streams to Twitter as well. We've got one coming up tomorrow night. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Used to live stream all the time, but I did it during the day, and it just felt like people just don't have time to do it during the day. So the streams got very little support, I guess you would say. I guess if you're really awesome, people will watch your streams during the day. But I think you got to grow I think you have to grow like a pretty decent sized base for enough people to do that. And by the way, I've got around 900, probably a little north of 800 on Twitter. I've got over 5,000 subscribers, followers, whatever you call them on TikTok. I wish all you folks would go on over to the YouTube page, give us a subscribe there. That would be awesome. Deep dive Georgia offense. Second year offensive coordinator Mike Bobo. He heads up one of the nation's better offenses. I mean, they're pretty good. They're not like a dominant offense, but they're really highly rated in a lot of categories. And then there's some other where they're not. They're kind of a mixed bag, a lot like this Texas offense. They're not as dominant on the ground as we're used to seeing from these Georgia teams, these Kirby Smart Georgia teams. I mean, they're okay. They're like 135 yards a game. We'll talk about all the stats here in a little bit, but there's something missing. I mean, almost to me, a very similar story to the Texas Longhorns offense. Just something not quite clicking. They rely heavily on the arm of senior quarterback Carson Beck. He's 283 of 435 attempts this season. That's 65%. 3,429 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. 3 of those interceptions came against the Texas Longhorns. And I think he turned the ball over at least a couple times in that Mississippi State, or that Ole Miss game, rather, a little later in the season. So I think I think if you look at Carson Beck's like turnovers, I think most of them happened in the Alabama game, the Texas game, and the Ole Miss game. He's got 53 rushes for 86 yards, which is not great at all. But quarterbacks always get robbed because sacks count against him on rushing yards. He's got 218 gross rushing yards. He's at 4.11 yards per carry. Gross. Touchdown on the ground for Carson Beck. So he's not Lenore Sellers, but he can move all right in the pocket. He can scramble out of there and pick up some yards. They're led on the ground by 5'10", 210-pound freshman Nate Frazier. He's got 123 carries for 587 yards, 4.8 yards per carry, and 8 touchdowns on the ground. He's got 9 catches for 59 yards on the season, so a little bit of a weapon out of the backfield that just don't utilize him all that much. 5'9", 205-pound junior running back Trevor Etienne, the transfer from Florida. He's kind of the I don't know that there's a backup and a starter here either. You really don't see that too much in college football anymore. What you tend to see is a lot of guys getting a lot of playing time. But he's kind of that second guy. If you look just statistically, he's got 95 carries for 477 yards, 5 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns. He's got 23 catches for 140 yards, so a little bit bigger weapon out of the backfield, at least in terms of volume for Trevor Etienne. 6 foot, 185-pound senior Arian Smith leads the Dawgs in receiving yards. He's got 42 catches for 709 yards, 4 touchdowns on the season. 5'10", 187-pound senior Dominic Lovett leads in receptions and touchdowns. He's got 53 receptions for 571 yards and 6 touchdowns. And then rounding that group out, 6'1", 210-pound junior Dylan Bell, 46 catches, 433 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's the big guy, and he's really not that big. The tight ends, Oscar Delp and Lucky Lawson, combined for 39 catches, 541 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So a pretty big footprint out of those tight ends, and they'll play a lot of 2 tight end looks. There'll be a lot of plays where both of those guys are on the field at the same time. Offensive line, really good size. They average 6'5.5" across the board and 316 pounds across the board. They're not as big as that Texas A&M offensive line, but they're probably better. Like, they're probably more athletic. Some people think that Georgia offensive line one of the best in the country or the best in the country. They certainly did a good job against Texas in Austin, protecting Carson Beck. The run game, nothing spectacular, but they were, I guess, good enough at it when they did run it that they could kind of be consistent with it and kind of keep Texas off balance. They'll run a mix of 11 and 12 personnel packages. We'll see one back, one tight end. We'll see one back, 2 tight ends. The tight ends are pretty versatile. They'll play H-back. They'll play on the line as a tight end with their hand down. They'll also split out. So they can, a lot like a lot of offenses in college football today, they can get pretty multiple with the same personnel in the game. And that's always tough on a defense. It's tough to make calls when the team can line up with a tight end with his hand down, an H-back right behind him, a tight wide receiver look, and get kind of heavy in the run game like that. And then they can spread them all out and run the back out of the backfield, and you suddenly go from a personnel package that's pretty power-based to a 5 wide package. Tough to call defenses. Pretty standard running game for college football. You're going to see the zone read type stuff. It's obviously not a read. You're going to see the inside zone. You're going to see a little bit of a power type old school stuff. One thing they do that is a lot different, I wouldn't say a lot different, but pretty damn different than most teams. You will not see most teams run these little quick pitches the amount that Georgia does. They seem to really like that. Passing game, to me, I call it a pro style passing game. I mean, what the hell does that mean anymore? I honestly don't know. I feel like that was a term that came about in the 80s and 90s before passing really took a hold of college football and even high school football. I mean, I remember the year after my senior year in high school, I went back to watch them play in the quarterfinals. I think they played in Texas Stadium, the old Texas Stadium. They played Grapevine, Texas. And folks, we're in Northeast Texas, small town. I don't know how the hell Grapevine, Texas was in the same classification as us. And this was back when there was no Division One, Division Two. It was just 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A. So we were a 4A school, and we didn't see hardly any passing, man. It was all, you know, I formation, power I formation, two tight ends. Every once in a while, you'd split an end out and throw the ball. I mean, just not a lot of razzle dazzle at all. And they play this Grapevine team in the quarterfinals that comes out in four wide receivers the entire game and just threw it all over the damn stadium. We got our ass kicked. But we ain't never seen anything like that. So that was like in the late 90s. That was 1996. So by that point, like there was high schools that were starting to get pretty passy. And so I honestly don't know what pro style passing game means, but just for shits and gigs, I mean they run a lot of they run a lot of quick hitches, they run a lot of crossing routes, corner routes, you know, posts. I mean just stuff. Hell, I don't know. I'm just gonna shut up because I don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm calling it a pro style passing game. There's not a lot of like sneaky shit going on, I guess. Like it looks like what you would see at an NFL game. They'll employ some motion. They'll try to, verify coverages. They'll try to outflank you with motion, things like that. We'll see a little bit of that in a minute when we check tape. Statistically, this offense, 425 yards of offense a game. That's 37th in the country. Against Texas in October, only 283 yards of total offense. Passing offense, they're at 297 yards per game. Only 175 on October 19th against this Texas defense. Rushing offense, 128 yards per game. They only had 108 against this Texas defense back in October. Scoring offense, 34 points a game. That's 25th in the nation. They only got 30 points in that game in Austin against Texas on October 19th. We'll talk about how they got to that 30 points. Sacks allowed. They've had 18 on the season, which is 43rd. Texas had one sack against them, which I feel like they'll do better than that this time. I was really surprised at that low number. I'm not sure why. Turnovers lost, 16 on the season. That's good for 53rd in the country. They had 3 in that game against Texas. 3 picks by Carson Beck. Third down offense, 41% of the time they convert, which is 58th in the country. They only converted 35% of the time down in Austin on October 19th. Red zone offense, they're really good. 92%, north of 92%, ninth in the country. They were only 80% in the red zone against Texas, though. You look at this offense for Georgia, how it matches up with this Texas defense, and what this Texas defense did last time they actually played. I feel like, again, we're going into a situation where the Texas defense advantage over this Georgia offense. I honestly think this Texas defense, the best defense that Georgia has played all season. They just got put in a lot of really shitty situations in that game one, that first game against Georgia. Let's check tape. So I chose the Ole Miss game because I kind of thought, I could have went back and did the Texas and Georgia game. And I kind of wish I did in some respects, but I think that game doesn't matter anymore. That game's over. So whatever happened in that game, I don't care. I really just want to show you guys kind of what Georgia's going to do offensively. And also thought Ole Miss just kind of the closest thing defensively that you're going to see in the SEC, I feel like, with regards to Texas. Like, I think they have a really good defense as well. So let's take a quick look at this Georgia running game. Here we're going to have like a little inside delay. And I don't know what the hell happened. I don't know if this is rain. I know it rained some in this game. I don't know if this is like a rainstorm coming through or if they shot off a cannon or something at some point and it's all smoky. So I apologize. But we're just going to have a little inside delay here. The running back's just going to take a step towards the quarterback. Nothing special. They're going to get a hat on a hat and move some ass, and they just get a nice little gain right up the middle. Avoids that little tackle attempt right there. Picks up 11, 12 yards. Then we're going to show you that quick pitch we've been talking about. It's pretty cool because by formation and by motion, you kind of get an old school toss sweep. Back in the day, used to line up in the I formation. And when you ran the toss sweep, you'd either lead with that fullback or he would sometimes go the other direction to pull to confuse linebackers. We did that a lot. But you'd have your guard and your guard. Your two uncovered inside linemen would pull and get out in front on that little toss sweep. Well, all that pulling is tough and rough on those big guys these days. There's a lot of ways that can go wrong. So they don't like to do it all that much. But what they will do is stack up some tight ends and some H-backs and run some guys in motion like you're seeing right here to the top of the screen. And they just become the lead blockers. And those are big enough guys to get up on those linebackers, get up on those defensive backs. And they're way more agile, so they can more easily make those types of blocks. But this is like a little wrinkle that you're going to see a lot out of Georgia. Most teams just don't run this type of play. But it's pretty cool because you saw, well, let me back it up and I'll show you what you saw. At the snap, there's the two tight ends. They're pulling out. You see number 57 kind of influence the right guard. He kind of influences a little bit. And then you see that wide receiver coming down to just get a seal block right there. And then 57 is just going to kind of loop around. Nice little pickup. Here we're going to see a reverse, and my bad, this is the one where 57 loops around, gets the influence. So you're going to see the motion in the backfield by 11. You're going to see a little zone handoff look, a little inside zone look, and it's pretty good time. I really like this play, and I think it's very, very similar to what Texas does. But you got a lot of motion. You're going to see the backside guard. You're going to see that H back on the top of the screen. They're all coming down to the bottom to just confuse linebackers. And then you're going to see 57 sort of influence that defensive end just enough so the split end can get down and seal him off, and then he kind of loops around the backside to get up on the second level. There he goes. And I don't know what he did right there. He was dancing or something. It looked like he hurt himself. I have no idea. But nice little pickup on that reverse. Here we're going to see some pretty cool, like quick screen motion. Here, the motion's going to come down, and he's just going to kind of stop right behind this split end. And you're not going to see a whole lot of adjustment by the secondary. You're going to see that safety come up a little bit, but that corner's just going to kind of settle back because they're in a zone, obviously. He doesn't know who's going where. So he's just settling and filling towards the boundary. And then you're going to see at the snap, the right tackle is going to come out, try to make a block. It's a really cool. I like it because he just sets up behind that wide receiver, that split end, and makes his block really easy. They're coming that direction. He's just basically got to stand there and make a block. See right there, he just sets up behind him. The safety's going to come as soon as he sees the ball get thrown, and he's got to go right through that man. So you're like making the block for him. He actually does a pretty decent job of getting around the block. The right tackle got out there and did something, got in the way of some people, but all in all, pretty nice little play, and I like the design. Ole Miss got a lot of pressure on Carson Beck, but when they didn't, this is what it looked like. And man, Carson Beck really good if you give him time. He's gonna have plenty of time on the play action right here. Nice ball into a tight window. Nice gain. This is almost the exact same look as what we just saw, just going the opposite direction. Again, when Beck has time, really good. Steps up, boom. Nice little pass. Those are tough passes. Those are tight windows, and he's just firing them in there. Here's a really nice look at Beck just kind of going through his reads. He's going to look to the top at that wide receiver, and I think they're trying to get the inside man loose down the field. That was a really big head fake, so to speak. But you're going to see him see that that's not there. He's going to come back to the other side of the field, check his running back. That's not there. Then he goes to the middle of the field and sees that drag coming across, delivers a really nice ball. So give Carson Beck time, and he's going to pick you apart. And I really feel like Texas has got to be better this game at getting some pressure on him. They handled Beck pretty well. I mean, they picked him off 3 times. I don't know that he's going to make those same types of mistakes in this game, though. If you're the Texas defense, I don't know that you count on 3 Carson Beck turnovers in this one, the SEC championship game. And then when he doesn't have time, he's not like a flashy athletic guy, but he's mobile enough. He's going to avoid some early pressure here. Step out, step up, get up the field, and pick up a nice little gain on 2nd and long. Again, he's not gonna burn you. He's certainly, to me, and sometimes looks can be deceiving, but he certainly looks more fleet of foot than Quinn Ewers. So he can move around a little bit and pick up some stuff if you get out of your rushing lanes and things like that. One of his favorite targets out of the backfield is this Cash Jones, this number 32 wide receiver. And I just found out today he's from he's from Texas. And I forgot it's like a purple school. Brock. He's from Brock, Texas. Old Cash Jones from Brock, Texas. But you saw it in this game. You saw it in the Georgia Tech game. He he loves to find Cash Jones out of the backfield, and we're gonna see it right here. Nice little. He just kind of wheels down the field, gets behind everybody. Not a great throw, but good enough to get it completed. Oh, Cash Jones will hurt you out of the backfield. So if you're Texas, you should certainly be looking for this, and you better be ready for it because old Cash can get loose, and he can make some plays in the passing game. Here we go down in the red zone. We're going to see a same little motion we saw earlier and that quick screen behind it. Same type of deal. He sets up right behind him, makes the block easy, just gets up underneath the offensive lineman coming out to block out, makes a nice little play, nice little pickup to get closer to the goal line on a third down. And then this is the exact same freaking play. I'm almost positive. The exact same play as Georgia ran against Texas in almost the exact same spot on the field for their first touchdown on October 19th. It's just going to be a little quick pitch. You're going to get a lot of big bodies out in front, and you're just going to keep running and running and running until you get into the paint. And that's what he did. Touchdown, Georgia. That's their opening touchdown of the Ole Miss game. Texas will see the quick pitch. If Georgia gets down into the red zone, they will see the quick pitch. Georgia just saw what Texas did to that Texas A&M offensive line when they were trying to just run up the middle a couple times down there on the goal line. Getting outside and getting some big bodies in the way. That's something you don't see a lot. So pretty cool on them to, kind of utilize an old school tenet of power rushing and just kind of modernize it a little bit and get it into the game. Final thoughts on this Georgia offense. Listen, I think they're good. I think Texas handled them really well. And if you look at SEC Unfiltered, they always do it on probably, what is it, Tuesday, Monday. Yesterday they start saying drop your score predictions for this Georgia and Texas SEC championship game. And there's just some absurd predictions out there. Like I don't know if these people don't watch football or like what the deal is, but there's like 48-7, 38-21, like just all these crazy ass scores and people will call them on it. And it's both ways, by the way. Somebody will call them on it, like, well, they scored 30 last time. Yeah, but listen to how they scored 30 points in that game. Georgia had 6 drives from a minute and 41 left in the first quarter to halftime. They started those 6 drives at the Texas 13, at the Texas 28, at the Texas 34, at the Georgia 45, at the Georgia 20, and at the Texas 30. Their average starting field position, again, on 6 drives with a minute 41 left to go in the first quarter, all the way through to halftime, 38-yard line of Texas. Their average starting field position on the 5 scoring drives, the Texas 32. Georgia only had to travel 85 yards to score 23 points in the first half of that game. That was 30% of their output offensively happened with a minute and 41 left in the first, all the way through the second quarter. Outside of those 6 drives, Georgia had 9 other drives in this game. 6 of those drives went for less than 13 yards. 7 of those drives went for less than 21 yards. And there were 4 3 and outs in those 9 drives. So this Texas defense just continuously, no fault of their own, got put in just horrible, horrible situations against that Georgia Bulldog offense. And they held up pretty well. You'd like to see them force more field goals, but it is what it is. And they did force 3 out of 5 for field goals. So I think if you're Texas in this game, you just go into this game and you just be yourself against that Georgia running game. They did a pretty decent job of slowing it down last time they played in October. And Georgia's not overly good at it. I mean, I don't think it's ever going to be part of Georgia's game plan to just come in and just try to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. I don't think that's in Mike Bobo or whatever that Bobo dude's. I think it's Mike Bobo. I don't think that's in his DNA. I think if they can have some success with it, you'll start to see that. But I mean, they gave up 108 yards to Georgia in October. If they could match that or get close to that, I think that's okay. I like to see Texas try to get Colin Simmons and Trey Moore lined up over their tight ends in pass pro. We saw Ole Miss a couple of times just absolutely abuse those Georgia tight ends in the pass rush. I don't see any reason watching the Ole Miss game against this Georgia offense why Texas can't have multiple sacks on Saturday. I mean, Ole Miss had 5 against them, and I know Ole Miss one of the best teams in the country sacking the quarter. But I think they have 52 sacks this year, which is, I mean, it's almost 20 more than Texas has. But I think athletically, Texas has some guys that look a whole lot like that Ole Miss front four. I don't think this Georgia team has a lot of big play threat down the field. They don't have any big possession type guys. There's not really anything on this Georgia offense that really just frightens you, except just not being sound. I think if you're Texas, we saw him. We saw him make some mistakes in that first game. That long tight end catch. We saw on 3rd and long they couldn't get off the field right after they scored their first touchdown in the second half. They had Georgia backed up in their own end. It was 3rd and 12, I think. 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12. And they just gave up a really easy one for like a 20-yard gain. But I just don't see, and maybe they'll prove me wrong on Saturday, but I just don't see like a lot of home run out of this Georgia offense. They really rely on Carson Beck to get the ball up and down the field passing. So if you're Texas, I don't know that I don't know that we're going to see a lot of change in what Texas did defensively the first time. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some different wrinkles in there. But I think generally they're going to try to get pressure with 4. They're going to protect against the long ball on the back end. And I think if they can pressure back up consistently, they're going to turn in another good performance against this Georgia offense. They picked him off 3 times last time. I don't know that we'll get that again this time. That'd be odd. I mean, it'd be awesome. But then again, this Texas defense takes the ball away a lot. One of the best in the country. Georgia's going to do what they do off. I mean, I don't think there's going to be just a whole lot of wrinkle coming out of that group. Yeah, there'll be a couple trick plays like that tight end in the flat deal they did, that little throw whatever it was. I forgot what it looked like, a sideways pass or a handoff. I don't know. At that point, I was distraught because we didn't get off the field on 3rd and 12. But I don't think you're going to see just a whole lot of razzle dazzle out of Georgia. So I think this matchup between the Georgia offense and the Texas defense, I don't think it looks a whole lot different on either side of the ball than what we already saw. We'll be back Thursday. We'll have the deep dive on this Georgia defense. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Horn Takes live stream, 7 p.m. Central Time. We're going to have Chris, Dave, and Cole from SEC Unfiltered joining me. Excited about that. That'll be on Twitter. That'll be on YouTube as well. Find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Give us a subscribe. Give us a follow. Won't cost you guys anything. We sure do appreciate the support. And if you're following us one place, go follow us on the other place. That goes for you TikTok people especially. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. It's Tuesday. We're almost to hump day. We're getting close to that SEC championship game. I'm getting excited. You guys get hooked.